Welcome back to the #1 television program on the internet. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today we're going to be reviewing Robert B. Parker's The Judas Goat. This is book number 5 in his big, massive Spencer Investigator series. Let's see, I've got the entire series. When I say massive, I mean massive. I don't even know how many books there are. But right down here is I've got them all. Right there. I don't know if I can even pan out. There, these ones over here. These ones right here. I bet there's like maybe 30. Probably about that. And we were rereading them all for the channel and reviewing them in order of publication. And we are to number 5. The Judas Goat. Let's talk about the cover. You know I love graphic design and cover illustration, so let's give this one a go. It's a pretty bright cover. Stands out. I don't like the title at all. There's dynamite on the cover. That's all right. It does its job okay. We got a nice look at the author on the back with his dog. So whenever I picture Investigator Spencer, who is our main title character, I just picture this guy. Because Spencer is sort of like a Jack Reacher type guy. He's always the smartest dude in every room, and he's a big dude, and he kicks ass. He's a tough guy. He's a tough guy. That guy looks like a tough guy. Anyway, so this came out in 1978, book number 5. If you want to watch my previous reviews of books number 1 through 4, just type in my last name, Durfee, and Robert B. Parker. Those reviews will magically appear upon your computer screen, and you can watch them there. That's how the internet works. Anyway, this is about Hugh Dixon. He wants to hire Spencer to solve a problem, and he's going to offer Spencer the biggest payday Spencer's ever had. Like, huge money, like $20,000. The problem is Spencer's going to have to fly to London to figure this out. Because what happened was Hugh Dixon's family was blown up by terrorists in London. The terrorist group is just simply called the Liberty. And they are sort of an Irish sort of gangsta mob type of terror group. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, it was the IRA. Always blowing up pubs and saloons and car bombs. And, it was just everywhere. It happened in Ireland, it happened in England, it happened sometimes in America. They were just off the hook. It was nonstop. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. But anyway, in 1978, it was a big-time news story of almost all the time, just all weekly. And, but this guy, Hugh Dixon, his family was killed in one of those, explosions, and he wants Spencer to go over to England and find out who was behind that explosion, and he just basically wants them either dead or alive. And Spencer isn't the type of person to do assassinations, but he takes on the job anyway, and he goes to London. And one of the things that I was fascinated about this book, well, it sent me down the rabbit hole. It sent me down the internet rabbit hole. Because when I read books, I oftentimes Google things, like if a character goes to a certain city in the world that I've never heard of or don't know much about, I'll Google it, I'll Wikipedia it, I'll learn all about it. I'll, click on Google Images and look at some of the landscape of it. And so one of the things that happened was Spencer wants to take his gun to England with him. And I'm thinking, that don't sound right. England and Great Britain are gun-free. And not only that, but to get his gun into England, he has to go through the English law enforcement. He has to go to the English police, like Scotland Yard, and get a special permit, to take his pistol to London. And he has to take it on the airplane. He has to take it apart and put it in his luggage, and then he can reassemble it once he gets to London. But the whole process was so just overly complex, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what is going on here? Because I always was under the impression that you just couldn't have guns in England. And even the police don't have guns. So I looked this up. Turns out, citizens in Great Britain and England could actually have firearms just the same as we have them in the United States, all the way up until 1997. And that's when they were taken away. That's when they were banned, when laws were passed. I was like, my God, that's not that long ago. I thought it was always sort of like, I thought it was like from like World War II or something. No, 1997 is when they stripped firearms from the general citizens of England and Scotland and Wales. And I'm thinking to myself, God, that wasn't that long ago. And it was a conservative movement. It wasn't even liberal. It was like the conservatives did this. And I'm like, the world has gone bizarre. This is stuff that I'm just learning. And then I was like, okay, well, the police in England don't even have firearms. Well, when were those taken away from them? Thinking, well, that would be probably around 2005. Actually, the police have never carried firearms. Ever. It's just been one of those deals where they took pride in never carrying them. And so I was just like, I was blown away by that. The police never had them. Mind blown. As someone who works in law enforcement, you know, if you followed my channel for any length of time, and I work in law enforcement, certain branch of law enforcement, but I've been through the academy, I've been through the training, I have to qualify yearly on pistols, rifles, and shotguns to keep my law enforcement certifications. And these gun laws that I was reading about in England were just, I was like, as an American, British people, as an American, I'm lost. British people, they look at America and all of our guns and they think we're the crazy ones. And I'm just like, I just don't even know anymore. Anyway, but in 1978, when this book takes place, our dude Spencer he was more than welcome to take his gun over to England, his pistol. He just had to fill out a lot of paperwork, go through a lot of red tape to make it happen, but he made it happen. And it's a good thing he did, because he runs into some pretty fucking bad people over there that do carry guns and that didn't give a shit about hurting anybody. And mainly they were mobsters. And so what happens? Does he find the people that that bombed Hugh Dixon's family to death? Does he assassinate them? Does he just bring back their heads? How does he prove that he's found them and got them justice, or maybe killed them or assassinated them? Well, you'll have to read the book to find out. It's one of the better, well, here's the thing. I'm going to say one of the better ones, but here's the problem. When I read a Spencer book, I like reading the Spencer books because of the Boston flavor. They take place in Boston. Our investigator, Spencer, he's from Boston. This is where my Salem, Massachusetts. Okay, you know, it's the closest I got to Boston. Anyway, I like to read certain mystery novels, like the Longmire series or the C.J. Box series, because they're set in Wyoming, or the Tony Hillerman series because they're set in Arizona. Or, you know, the Michael Connelly, Harry Bosch, because they're set in downtown Los Angeles. Elizabeth George, because they're British murder mysteries. Or Peter Robinson, because they're British. Ian Rankin, because they're Scottish mysteries. Stephen Saylor, because they're Italian mysteries. If I'm reading a mystery series set in a certain geographical location, it's the location that I'm kind of interested in. And Robert B. Parker does a great job of describing Boston neighborhoods, but then he took our guy over to London. It's kind of like when Longmire went to Philadelphia, or when any of these writers make their main investigator go to some other state. It kind of loses me, because I wanted to. I'm reading about that character because I like the location they're solving mysteries in. I like the Boston location. It's a good story, though. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.